Hello.
Hello.
So we did an amazing improv class last night with Sarah Samuels. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great fun. Highly recommend it.
Yes, highly recommend it. And then I always have this hair that sticks out.
Oh, it's looping up on that side. Again, it's looping up.
And one of the things that they teach in improv is that everything is a yes and. So when you're doing an exercise with somebody, whatever they say, you always run with whatever they're presenting you with, and then you add on to it. And it made me realize how in relationship and in our conversations, when I'm caught up, I'm not in that frame of mind, and that I can absolutely lead with a no, and so can you.
That's true. I think the one area which this is relating for me at the moment, this is what's coming
Yeah.
forward anyway, is that I'm reminded of a training that I did with this amazing guy, Don Donovan. And he was
Mm-hmm.
talking about a situation where in his working environment, he was the president of a very big corporation. He said that before he was exposed to the three principles, people around a boardroom table would have an idea, they would express that idea, and then they'd get shot down. It was almost became the culture. It's like someone had an idea, it would get shot down. And he said when he had this understanding and he shared this understanding with the workforce, it turned the culture into this mindset where people would have an idea, and however crazy that idea was, they would feel that they can express themselves. And then the people around the boardroom table went from a place of shooting it down. It's like, let's build this up. Let's take this as far as we can go. However crazy this idea may sound, let's take it as far as it can go. Maybe it won't go anywhere, but maybe it will. So it's kind of like for me that, and he said that, ultimately looking back over the course of 5 years, he said it was amazing how so many solutions came out of that one crazy idea. So for me, it kind of reminded me of that, in the sense that, that yes and feature in improv is like, that's an opportunity to look in a more positive direction rather than get into this sort of culture of shooting everything down. And I think you're right. In relationship, when we get into a low mood and we get into a low state of mind, the reflected mindset is like, yeah, I'm going to go to like, no, that doesn't work, or I'm going to look for ways to shoot it down in some way, and sometimes a really subtle way.
And it can kind of be a habit too. Like just the other day, we were riding our bikes around the neighborhood with the dog, talking, and we were talking about book titles potentials. And you came up with an idea, and I immediately was like, no, that's not going to work, that's too boring. And I wasn't feeling like I was in a low mood, but it was kind of a habit to go to the that's not going to work, rather than me having an open mind and being like, oh yeah, well, let's run with that. What can I add on to, oh, let's start there, but what can I add on to that?
Yeah.
What do you
Well,
like
no,
about
also
that?
even so funny is like when you mentioned, let's talk about yes and in this vlog, I was saying, no, that's not going to work. You reminded me of the ridiculous quote, for me saying that was how ridiculous that was. It reminded
Yeah.
me, how yesterday or the day before when I shot you down, you said, or you shot me down, and I
Yeah.
reminded you, yeah, let's build this up. Let's build this up.
Yeah, and I can see that it was somewhat of a blind spot, and how much more fun it is to have conversations and exploration, like whether it's an idea for this blog, whether it's book title, whether it's where to go this weekend or what to do. It's like, rather than looking at why things won't work, being able to look at, well, what are the possibilities? Like, let's start there, and what can I add on to that?
Yeah. It's also what I love about improv, and I kind of love about this understanding, and I see the similarities for myself, is it's kind of like you get more comfortable looking into the unknown
Mm-hmm.
rather than rely on what you already know, what you think you already know, and listening to that narrative, and particularly listening to that narrative from a low state of mind. It inevitably gets you into difficulty, but to sort of start to get a sense that, yeah, if I look towards the unknown as a resource, or find a way to be more comfortable looking in that direction, all sorts of wonderful things can happen, and invariably do. And actually also the mind starts to settle. I noticed that in improv last night, that the more I was conscious of looking in that direction, that actually the unknown is not something to be scary of. It's something maybe I need to befriend.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found myself starting to settle and started to relax, and then the improvisation became easier. But when I was caught up in my head, worrying how I'm going to perform or show up, then invariably it went from bad to worse. But I started to experiment with like looking towards the unknown as actually something that, you know, I can start to be comfortable with.
And I think it could be kind of an indicator. So I'm not suggesting, oh, you need to use this technique in your communication with people to do a yes and, but it's like if I'm not in that state of mind, that's letting me know, hey, I'm kind of looking down the tunnel. I'm not got a really open mindset. And for me, when I understand that's what's going on, if I'm really caught up, that I might say, hey, this isn't such a good time to talk about this because I'm not in a great state of mind. So it's a great indicator to kind of let me know whether I'm in a good place to talk or not.
Yeah, it's such a difficult thing to articulate. I think that this idea, when we're pointing in this direction, is all about understanding, because we're so attuned or programmed to think, yeah, we need process, we need technique, we need a magic bullet. But really, the relief comes through understanding. And it's kind of hard to get that across, I find, with, you know, with coaching clients.
What do you mean?
Well, in a sense, I'm trying to point to the unknown. I'm trying to, and however I do that, whatever metaphors I use or analogies I make to sort of point in that direction, the client, more often than not, particularly to begin with, they're looking for a technique. They're looking for a process that they can use, something tangible that they can understand, that they can apply. And this is more about having an understanding of how the mind works, and then getting the relief from that, and getting the inspiration that they need from that.
Well, I think it's when we get an understanding of the feedback that our emotions give us, like if we're looking at it as an understanding of how the mind works, it's really getting comfortable with the human psychology and understanding that the ups and the downs of the human psychology are normal and healthy, and they give us feedback as to the quality of our thinking in the moment. And so for me, even, you know, I was kind of in an unhealthy normal of going to, yeah, that won't work. But now I have more understanding and awareness about it. I'm probably going to recognize that more often than I was before. It was kind of a blind spot before. I wasn't seeing that at all.
Yeah. And for me, it is about recognizing that when I started to feel out of balance, and I started to feel out of balance very quickly doing the improv because it was a real stretch for me. It's kind of like worrying about what other people think. Am I going to sound okay? I'm going to be like an absolute fool here. When I'm looking in that direction, I tend to suffer even more. But when I look to the unknown, it's kind of like, okay, I'm using that label, the unknown, whatever label we're going to slap on that. When I'm looking in that direction and I can find myself being comfortable with that idea, then that's where I was finding relief. And I think that's the indicator for me, is to see that I'm out of balance, and maybe start to think about, well, what direction am I going to look in here to get value, to get inspiration, to get a new way forward.
And then when you're in that present moment place, like when you're not caught up worrying about, you know, like an improv, how am I going to come across? Like what I found when I was doing, you know, one of the exercises was to do like a little scene with somebody. And what I found was, if I was, you know, just in the moment, I wasn't even thinking about it. I couldn't even really remember what I did afterwards. Like there was no self-consciousness there. And that was freedom.
Yeah.
And I think that the freedom is in sort of being okay with wherever we're at on that emotional spectrum. It doesn't matter, but we can have that experience of freedom and sort of have the grace that comes from being in that place. And naturally, without having to use a technique or process, naturally we show up in the fun of it and the joy of it and the ease of it in that moment.
Yeah.
And we can even, you know, be in the anger in a moment and still have freedom around that, if we're able to not judge ourselves, if we can see that this is normal, this is healthy, that we don't even have to not have freedom when we're in a low mood.
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. The other thing I noticed actually too is that and when I did my set with with someone who was obviously quite a seasoned improver, I noticed that initially how I was sped up, and I was starting to sort of get into my sort of performance anxiety, and I was kind of going in and out of that. But there was a point where I started to notice how settled he was. I had noticed how he would take these pauses. And ultimately, you know, I think that was the difference between me and perhaps the guys who are actually more seasoned in this improvisational approach to life, if you like, or just in that sense doing a set, if that's the right word to call it. But it was really calming for me to have him show up and be really kind of settled, And it allowed me to look in that direction, be aware, yeah, there's value in me settling down. I'm getting caught up here. I need to be more like this guy. When he's settled, he's coming out with these really amazing, amazing, funny things. And so
But probably not trying.
And not trying at all,
Yeah.
just really just being settled, just taking
himself.
a moment to, you know, to be reflective, or to look towards the unknown in a way where you're not trying to grasp at it, you're just trying to allow it to come in. I think that's the point for me as well.
Yeah, well, it's a great metaphor. Improv is a great metaphor for life. Well, thank you for everyone who joined us. Good to see you, and hope you have a great weekend.
Have a great
Take
weekend.
Care.
Bye.
Bye.